Call the Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, April 23rd to order at 6 p.m. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Berry.
Here.
Mr. Morris.
Here.
Mr. Culp.
Here. Mr. Hess, would you please read the first responders casualties?
Deputy Sheriff Justin DeRoiser, 29, Cowlitz County Sheriff's Department, Washington. End of watch, April 14th, 2019. Officer Eugene Wynn Jr., 43, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. End of watch, April 19th, 2019.
We have no Operation Inherent Resolve Freedom Sentinel casualties, so please join me in a moment of silence for the first responders. Thank you. I'll now make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No, sir. Mr. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Morris. Aye. Mr. Culp. Aye.
We'll move right into new business and begin with our department head reports with our acting administrator, Mr. Hess.
Thank you, sir. The only thing I have tonight is the Land Bank is requesting a motion to approve Mr. Wardenburn from the Harrison Township Board of Trustees as a representative that is required by the section 172403 of the Ohio Revised Code. And if no one has any objections, just a motion to approve his selection to that board. And I have nothing else, and I'm open if anybody has any questions. Captain Segemeyer is unable to make it tonight, and if you have any police-related questions, I may be able to answer. If not, I will turn it over to Mr. Mayberry.
Thank you and good evening, Board. I don't have any formal items tonight, but are there any questions for Public Works?
Can you give us an update on Cranes Run?
There are signs that there's going to be some activity soon, so there's some detour signage that I noticed was up yesterday. Like I said, at the last board meeting, the first sign will be the milling and then the deep base patches. So I don't think there's been a change to the county schedule, so should be sometime next week on the start.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
Good evening, Board. I don't have any formal items at this time. We do have a need for several public hearings later in the meeting, but if you have any questions for community development, I'm happy to take those.
Mr. Hinkleman.
Mr. President,
You had a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have two items that perhaps you could enlighten me on, Chris. One, I got an email from a resident who is concerned about the unsolicited deposit he gets on a weekly basis of the Dayton Daily News Sunday values. They seem to be just tossed out in the driveways, and I see a lot when I walk through the neighborhood, a lot of people just kick them out in the street, and they end up as kind of a nuisance. Has there ever been a discussion or thought on whether or not that's going to be permissible in the township? I understand some municipalities have said if you're going to have an unsolicited drop-off, you have to walk it up to the curb or up to the porch or something like that. Has this ever been discussed or brought up before?
It's never really been brought up before. I think we had some internal discussion the other week about it.
We've reached out to the Dayton Daily News a couple of separate times and asked them not to provide unsolicited, and they've agreed or disagreed at that time. But we've never had a full discussion about whether or not the township, wants to go in any direction.
Well, the problem with that is the Ohio Revised Code still, it is a First Amendment right that they have. Municipalities can limit the amount of solicitate, or the type of solicitation under their, what do they call that? Under their charters. So we're bound, since we can't put anything under the charter, we're bound by the Ohio Revised Code. And other townships have had discussions about that, and no one has been able to find a way to, other than reaching out to Dayton Daily News and asking them to stop it. I get it ends up in my front yard, and I just go out, pick it up, throw it away.
It's not considered littering.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my understanding that people can try to opt out of receiving it, but the method to do that is poorly translated to those that deliver the paper, and it's just easier for them to drop it on everybody's driveway. So if we can investigate to see whether there's been any recent changes, if there's anything that can be done, but if we're bound by Ohio Revised Code and there's nothing we can do within our limited home rule rules, then we just need to convey that to those that reach out to us. So I don't know if any of the other trustees had heard anything from somebody, but
We
I
can certainly
got it.
investigate it and look, see if there's been any changes, but no, it's never been brought up in terms of the township passing in a resolution or anything on that matter before.
Yeah, if you could look into that and let me know at a future meeting. And then the next thing I'd like to do is ask our development department, who I have great faith in with regards to developments that happen within the township, to continue to monitor and work with the city of Miamisburg on the development that's going in over by Pipestone in the land that's being annexed. We have some residents who will remain in the township who are concerned that that development may lead to runoff or issues relative to drainage. Though we don't have control over that land anymore, I'd appreciate it if we could stay on top of what's happening there and see what the county's recommending to make sure our residents are protected.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
certainly can.
Mr. Hinkleman.
Good evening, Board. I have nothing formal for the Board this evening, but I did just want to take a minute to tell you a little update on our trash situation. As you all are probably aware, we have received a number of complaints about Rumpke and their current servicing of our residents. We document all of those complaints, and we've been working with our admin staff to respond to all of those calls that we field about Rumpke. Generally, we just take the complaint, we document it, and we forward it to Rumpke for them to correct. Most people are calling Rumpke first, so generally Rumpke already knows the issue. We are just kind of pushing it along as it comes forward. Almost all of our calls that we receive are pertaining to a missed house or, in certain situations, a missed street or potentially a missed neighborhood. When we respond or when we reach out to Rumpke, we then ask for them to respond directly to the resident. So again, Rumpke is taking ownership of that issue and is resolving it with the residents. We have had to work with Rumpke to make sure that if people are missed, that they are then serviced the following day as per our agreement, but I believe that is getting better as well. I bring this up today just to say that we have been receiving a larger than normal number of calls in certain areas of the township recently over the last couple of weeks. And so we did reach out to Rumpke and ask that we could schedule a meeting with them to discuss what is being done to correct some of the systemic issues that we're seeing. Once that meeting has occurred, I'm going to come back to the board and kind of let you know what we've discussed. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that we were aware of some of these larger issues. There's been a number of neighborhoods, unfortunately, that have been missed a number of times, and we've made Rumpke aware. They've explained to us, but we would like to sit down with them and have a full conversation. So I just say all that to say, you know, we understand the issues that are out there. Again, the township as the agent that holds the agreement, we are not our guys are not out there picking up the trash. So it is not something that we can just resolve by telling them to do it. We're going to have to sit down and understand why there being, these issues exist and hopefully help explain that to our residents as they call us and ask for help. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to ask or answer them, but I did just want to briefly note that we are aware of some additional issues and we are trying to address them as we can.
I would, when you have that meeting, I would like my feelings conveyed toward Rumpke, and their service is terrible. I don't know on a weekly basis if they're going to get mine or not. Some weeks they get it on Wednesday, some weeks they get it on Friday. But the problem was when we put this out for bid, we received 2 bids. One from Rumpke and one from Waste Management. Waste Management didn't want our business. They were jacking the rates up so high in year 2, 3, and 4 that we couldn't have gone with Waste Management with their rates. Once the contract was awarded, Waste Management folks from the region came in and talked to me, and they fired their entire staff, their entire management staff here locally. Waste Management did because of the bid they sent to us. So we were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it was either go with Rumpke or everyone's gonna have to take their trash themselves. So I experienced problems myself, so I'm not, I'm one of the ones that isn't getting serviced as well, but I would think that they have a lot of making up to do in the next 2 years, year and a half.
I would anticipate we will be going out, we're going to go out a bit sooner than we have in the past in the hopes of making sure that people have a long enough lead time to provide adequate bids to us. But I would imagine in probably 14 months, probably next June or July, we're going to be going out for bid where the contract ends December 31st of 2020.
I would think they have 14 months to get their act together. Any comments from the other trustees on that issue?
No, I'll just add that 2 weeks ago they missed mine, so I certainly understand what people are going through.
Yeah, my biggest concern with the report that you just gave was you felt comfortable using the word systemic, which means this is not a problem that's gotten any better since we started, and it's becoming pattern that everybody has noticed, and I, along with the other trustees, am experiencing the same as all of the citizens, and we need to do something about it. So thank you for staying on top of it, and we will do what we can to fix this problem.
Thank you.
Mr. McCord.
Good evening, Board. I have one item for you tonight. It's a resolution to appoint 3 of our employees for public records and open meeting law training this year. We're trying something a little bit different. We're going to go to an online training format, so we don't have to pay for travel expenses to and from Columbus. And we've got 3 individuals who would do the primary processing for our public records. Deb Sherwood, Jill Drury, and Julie Kahn. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'm not sure if this is better for you, Mr. McCord or Mr. Hess, but we just signed a purchase order. I did sign it for approximately $17,000 for the cost of distributing a printed newsletter to our residents. And I think our newsletters are great, and we have to keep our citizens informed. I'd like to see if we could perhaps look into maybe instead of sending a full printed newsletter, maybe if there would be a reduction in cost by sending a postcard that directs people to our Facebook page and our website, because we do the electronic newsletters more often, and I don't know if we are obligated to send a full magazine type setup, but I think if we could direct more people to see our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and the various means that Ms. Drury does such a great job with, if there's any way we could reduce those costs and maybe just send a postcard directing people to where they can see the newsletter, we might have a bigger, better impact.
Well, we went from 4 publications to 2. The board's desire, we can take a look at going to really none and just send a postcard out. The only people we will miss, not everybody has computer access. So we will miss some, and we can take a look, the staff can take a look to see how we might be able to get a list of people that would prefer that instead of having an electronic version. But we'll take a look at it this coming week.
Yeah, I'm not directing and asking anything be done. Again, I approved the purchase order. I just like maybe get feedback from each of the other trustees and give us the options that might be available. Thank you.
Sir, turn it back over to you.
I have a question, yeah. Keith Faber's state auditor, Keith Faber's attempting to change the training requirements for the public records laws. So, do you
Yes,
know
he
anything
did,
about
he did
that?
mention that when he was here week before last, and that has not gone into effect. I think it's not even, it's going to be proposed
Right.
during this session.
Okay,
Not sure what it's going to look like yet,
okay,
but I think now they've gone to the electronic delivery, it would be easier for electeds to step in and take the training.
Okay,
whereas
is that the
before it
plan?
would require physically going to the
Okay.
location.
Sorry, one other thing. Have we had a chance to reach out to the treasurer's office and see if they're open to a meeting to discuss pooling of CDs and our investment accounts?
No, we have not. We've been kind of wrapped up with the audit and other things, but I'll add that back on.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you, Mr. Hess. We'll now open the meeting up to public comments. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have up to 5 minutes to speak.
My name is Linda Beaver, and I live in Cranes Run on Rose French Way. And I'm pleased to hear that you are at least looking at the Rumpke problem. The last 4 Wednesdays, my trash has not been picked up, and I now routinely on Tuesday evening send an email to Rumpke to say, excuse me, but tomorrow is Wednesday, and Cranes Run would like to have their trash picked up. And then I call on Wednesday morning to say, I want to be sure that you have scheduled us for a trash pickup today. And then around 3 o'clock, when the trash has not been picked up, as it hasn't been, I call back again, and then they act like they're surprised that we haven't had any trash collection. And so they say, well, give me your address and I'll send a truck. I'll put an order in for a truck, and I say, well, be sure that truck has plenty of room and plenty of time, because my whole neighborhood is not picked up. And we use the next door communication on Facebook. And so every Wednesday it goes on and on and on. Turtle Dove has not been picked up, Old Osprey has not been picked up. And we are just not getting any service in Cranes Run. Last Wednesday, the guy came about 5 o'clock on Wednesday. The trash cans sometimes are there till Thursday, sometimes till Friday. I don't have a sidewalk, I have my driveway. So I have a trash can on one side, and if it's the week for 2 trash cans, I have one on either side of the driveway. You know, look at this gray hair. I am not a young kid who can spin my car around those trash cans every week. I am forced to navigate for 2 days or 3 days around those trash cans, and I'm tired of it. The other thing I want to say to you is that when I call here to say, what are you doing? I expect that somebody will call me back. So this morning, I came here because I wanted to say face-to-face to somebody, I'm really not happy, and I know you have a meeting tonight, and I hope you're working on that. But nobody could speak to me about it. All they could do was to take my name again, which I've left before, and my telephone number so that someone could get back to me. It is not reassuring to the residents of Miami Township that something is being done when nobody answers the call. I think Rumpke probably they always send me to somebody who isn't in the office so that I leave a voicemail to somebody who then never calls back. And basically, that's what's happening here too. I can leave a voicemail. I don't get a call back. And so I'm happy that you're at least working on it. But you have a lot of very upset people out there who want this issue resolved. My husband and I have been married 49 years and 10 months. So for 49 years and 10 months, we've been paying somebody to pick our trash up. And we've never had to complain before. We've never had to even think about it before. Once in a great while, it might be the next day because the trash truck broke down, but they are apologizing and saying, we're sorry. Rumpke basically acts like they're put out that we're asking to have our trash picked up. I don't have the power, so I look at the situation and I say, who has the power to change it? I don't have the power. I can complain, I can gripe, I can harass them. I told them I'm going to start bringing my trash on Thursday morning and throwing it in your driveway. Then you can drive around it because I'm tired of it. But you have the power to change this. If they aren't living up to their contract, why give them 14 more months to harass us with poor pickup? They either don't have enough people, they don't have enough trucks, or they don't have a person who knows how to route that. My background is in education. If we didn't route our school buses to pick up the kids, we'd be out of a job. I want something done about Rumpke, and I'm not alone. I stand with lots of people in Cranes Run to say, now's the time. This needs to be resolved. So tomorrow is Wednesday. So tonight I'll send my email, and in the morning I'll call. And then I'll call here if it doesn't get picked up by the end of the day and leave another message so that at least you'll know that it did or it didn't get picked up. But I do appreciate that you're at least having a conversation with them. And if you want community voice in that conversation, there are a whole bunch of us with a whole bunch of diverse backgrounds who are ready to do that. People are already calling. the Dayton Daily News and other places to say, can you put any pressure on Rumpke? So please get
I
that.
apologize that you haven't been getting phone calls back, but I can assure you that your concerns that are being left here are being sent on to Rumpke. But we'll look into why you're not getting return phone calls. And like I said, we're trying to do what we can with Rumpke, but at this point in time, we don't have anybody else interested in our trash business.
Well, you might have somebody else interested in it if you went back to Waste Management.
Well,
You might.
We're going to have that meeting with Rumpke, and then we'll figure out where we go from there. But
Thank you.
thank you for your time.
Hello, my name's Ross Fisher. I'm also here to talk about Rumpke. I also live in Cranes Run. Look, no different situation than Linda, and she's obviously, fairly upset about it, but it's hilarious to me, actually, because I don't know when my trash day is. It might be Wednesday, it might be Friday, it might be the next Wednesday. There's been 4 or 5 weeks where, yes, a truck is coming, we apologize, blah, 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 and the truck comes next Wednesday. And my trash can sits out in the neighborhood for a whole week because I don't know, they don't tell me that they're gonna come Wednesday. But, so it's, when I moved into Cranes Run, I pay an HOA, and one of their rules is you don't have your trash can out except on trash day. Well, that's out the window. And and when they do come, there's trash blowing through the neighborhood. There's trash cans that are not returned. I mean, I don't know how hard it is to set a trash can down. Waste Management's trucks were sure nice that it was an automated arm and it dumped it in and then set it right back down where it was. But my trash can may be in the middle of the road, it may be in the middle of my yard, it may be across the street at my neighbor's house. Not real sure. So it's not just missing, it's, I don't know if they're super upset that somebody's gotten on them, that, hey, you missed an entire neighborhood again. And I would think that if they miss an entire neighborhood and they have to schedule a truck to come out the next day or the next day, that they're missing another neighborhood because they're dedicating trucks. So I'm sure they're off across the board. And it's not just, our neighborhood or our township. So I just wanted to say that the problem isn't limited to being late or missing. It's also just, I'm proud of my where I live and my neighborhood and my house, and I pay taxes and I spend money on my house of my own accord to try to make it a nice place. So when people drive by, they're like, wow, this is a place I want to live. But that's hard to do when the whole neighborhood has their trash cans out for weeks in a row, or there's trash blowing around because somebody just doesn't care. And I have I respect Waste Management Company so much more and would be totally willing to pay more money for service like that.
Well, the problem is we had almost as many problems with Waste Management as what we do with Rumpke. We had a ton of calls and complaints. I was here when we went to Waste Management, and it was bad.
When 5
Not as
years
bad as
with
what
Waste
Rumpke
Management,
is.
we never had.
It's not as bad as Rumpke is,
Yeah.
but there are areas that we're having just as many problems as what, I live on that side of the township too. So I understand, and we'll make sure that those comments get back
Sure.
to Rumpke.
And the other thing, just to second what Linda said, communication is key. Rumpke doesn't care about us. They don't. It's whatever. That contract's signed. I have never personally called the township to complain because, I know how it flows, so to speak. But I just figure they'll come eventually. But for somebody in Linda's situation, if she calls here and is told she'll get a call back, she should get a call back. And if she's not told she's going to get a call back, then that process needs to be explained to her. Say, hey, we're recording all these calls, blah blah blah. But just So we're all on the same team.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. President, if I may, I don't think any trustee up here would not immediately solve this problem if there was an easy solution. We are considering all options. A lot of people don't remember, I will remember for far too long, that when Waste Management was informed they weren't going to have our contract anymore, they abandoned a large portion of the township and didn't pick up any of their trash at all for about a month. And then they left about, 6,000 or 7,000 of their recycling cans strewn all over the place. So those green and yellow cans still keep me up at night as I drive around, and they're still here. The trash industry is one that has just become very monopolistic in a lot of ways. I just read this week, Waste Management bought yet another regional provider. So the options that are to us, there's just not a lot of competition out there. And if you own the marketplace, you can provide poor service and still get paid. And that's a sad state of reality. So I think governments all over the place, not just this township, are going to have to realize we're going to have to do what we can. You hear a lot at the federal level about breaking up the large monopolies. Well, there's a huge monopoly in this nation on trash control that this township can't solve, but we're unfortunately having to deal with the byproduct of that. I remember when I lived in Kettering many years ago, I got a flyer on my mailbox that said, hey, some guy just bought a trash truck and he got approved by the city and he'll pick up your trash and offered a fair price. It wasn't a month before he got bought out by one of the big guys. So I switched my service, and a month later I was back with the guy I just left. So it's a tough problem. Thank you for coming in.
Anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. And I'll make a motion that we approve the appointment to the Montgomery County Land Bank of Roland Winburn.
Yes.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to hold off on that for a couple weeks until the next meeting if we could. I'm not sure what the makeup of that board is. I'd like to take a look at that.
Okay. Is that something that, is there an appointment pending?
No.
Okay.
We can wait.
We will table that motion for the next meeting. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 017-2019, a resolution to appoint designees to attend public records training on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the fiscal officer. Therefore, be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees appoints Jill Drury and Beverly Sherwood to attend public records training as designees for the trustees, and Julie Hunt to attend public records training for the fiscal officer for 2019, effective immediately.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we open public hearing for zoning case number 434-18.
I'll second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Zoning case number 434-18 is now open. The following be the order in which the hearing will proceed. Staff will give a report. Applicant will give a presentation. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. Please give your name and address for the record, and the board will close the public hearing prior to taking any final action. Mr. Hinkleman, have legal requirements for this hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission, and would you please review your report at this time?
I do. Thank you very much. Again, the case before you this evening is ZC 434-18, a major modification to the preliminary development standards and plan for the airport plan development. You will see within your packets a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission, a recommendation of approval and a 5-0 vote. They stated the Zoning Commission recommends approval of zoning case ZC 434-18 with no stipulations. The case that is before you is, again, a modification to the airport property. If you will recall, late last year, we made the applicant requested and was approved for a rezoning of the airport from a straight AP district into a PD5, a planned mixed-use district. As part of that change, there were development standards that were adopted. This evening, the applicant is asking for a change to very specific language within those standards. It is the outdoor advertising signage language. There is no other changes to the plan or to the text other than within the outdoor advertising signage section. And within that section, there are really no changes per se to the actual intent of this area either. There are just some text changes to make it very, very clear what is intended and where an outdoor advertising sign is permitted on the site. If you will recall, there is 2 Area 2s in the site plan. And again, this is language is now put in place to make it very clear that the intended location of that sign is the southern Area 2, and that sign does not have to meet the setback requirements as a general outdoor advertising sign would if it was in a straight zoning district. And then again, there's some clarification, some additional language that's put in to clarify the other standards, but we are not adding standards or subtracting standards. Again, just making it very clear with the language what is intended for that outdoor advertising sign at the airport. With that said, again, the Zoning Commission did recommend approval in a 5-0 vote. It is a very specific change that's being requested. If you have any specific questions you have of me, I'd be more than happy to address them. Otherwise, there is a representative of the applicant here who can speak to any questions you may have of him.
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Keys, you have anything you'd like to add? No? We will now hear from all proponents. Seeing none, I will ask for any opponents at this time. Seeing none, I will make a motion to close zoning case number 434-18.
Second?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution number 018-2019, a resolution to adopt a major modification of the preliminary development standards for the airport plan development under zoning case number 434-18 for land zone PD5 Plan Mixed Use District. Therefore, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the major modification to the preliminary development standards under zoning case number 434-18 and upholds the zoning commission recommendation.
I'll second.
Have any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I didn't know why y'all went all the way back over to sit down. Might as well just stay up there. All right, I will make a motion, we open the public hearing for zoning case number 435-19.
I'll second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Zoning case number 435-19 is now open. The following be the order in which the hearing proceed. Staff will give a report. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. Please give your name and address for the record, and the board will close the public hearing prior to final action. Mr. Hinkleman, have the legal requirements for this hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation for the Miami Township Zoning Department or Planning Commission? And would you please review your report at this time?
Thank you very much. Again, the case before you is ZC 435-19, a text amendment to Article 3. And I do have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission, as well as the Montgomery County Planning Commission, which I will read both of those into the record at the end. The case before you is a modification to Article 3. Article 3 is the section on enforcement penalties and fees within our code. But really, in this case, the change that is being requested deals with exemptions to the zoning code or the zoning certificate requirement. This specific request is to put into language the agricultural exemption to a zoning certificate language that the Ohio Revised Code permits townships to use. So this language, in conjunction with discussions with our legal counsel, is being proposed under the Section 307 to deal with agricultural exemptions as well as specifically ag tourism regulations under our code. I can go into specifics into each of those sections if you'd like, if there's any specific questions that you have. But generally, the ag exemption language still stays and relates back again to the Ohio Revised Code. And the agricultural ag tourism standards, which will be under the ag exemption portion of the code. Again, ag tourism is a very specific use that a property can state and is granted specific rights based on that use. So the Ohio Revised Code allows townships, even if someone were to claim ag tourism, it still allows townships to regulate certain portions of that use. And so these standards, which there are 7 standards that would be met or would need to be met to allow an agritourism operator to exist within the township. Again, I can go through any of those specific items if you'd like, or if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
I have one question. In the section talking about an agritourism operator shall provide off-street parking, does this regulation mean that has to be paved parking?
No. So the Ohio Revised Code is very specific. We are not permitted to require anyone to improve parking at all. So what our regulation does is it requires that parking space is designated on their property, but it does not require them to improve that space. It also makes sure that you're not doubling up on that acreage, so you're not saying, this is my blueberry patch and people are going to park in my blueberry patch. It's very unlikely that you would allow that to happen. So it requires the plan to designate the parking as a specific area, but it does not have to be improved.
Thank you.
So with that, if there's no other questions, I just want to read into the record. The Zoning Commission did recommend approval in a 5-0 vote, and they stated the Zoning Commission recommends approval to the Board of Trustees of zoning case 435-19, a text amendment to Article 3 of the Miami Township zoning resolution. And the Montgomery County Planning Commission also reviewed this case, and in a letter written by Larry Wiseman, the principal planner, he stated, please be advised that on April 11th, 2019, the Montgomery County Planning Commission approved zoning case 435-19, requesting a text amendment for Article 3 of the Miami Township zoning resolution with the comment that the County Building Regulations Department does not conduct inspections of structures that have been determined to be exempt from township zoning under the agricultural exemption process. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
We'll now hear from any proponents. Any opponents? I'll make a motion, we close public hearing for zoning case number 435-19.
Second?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye. I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 019-2019, a resolution to adopt a text amendment to the Miami Township zoning resolution. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the text amendment to the Miami Township zoning resolution under zoning case 435-19 and upholds the zoning commission recommendation.
Second. Any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we open public hearing for zoning case number 436-19.
I'll second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Zoning case number 436-19 is now open. The following be the order in which the hearing proceeds. Staff give a report. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. Please give your name and address for the record, and the board will close the public hearing prior to taking any action. Mr. Hinkleman, have legal requirements for this case or for the hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation with the Miami Township Planning or Zoning Commission and the Montgomery County Planning Commission? Would you please review your report at this time?
I do. Thank you very much. The case before you is 436-19, a text amendment to Article 38 of the Miami Township zoning resolution. And I do have a recommendation from the Zoning Commission as well as the Montgomery County Planning Commission, which I'll read in full into the record at the end. Article 38 is our accessory and temporary uses section. Currently, the way the code is laid out, Article 38 really pertains to accessory structures. This change is a substantial change. It is not a red line change. It is completely changing Article 38. That is not that all the language is changing. There is a substantial amount of language that's staying, but it is being reorganized to make it clearer for residents and commercial businesses to understand what accessory uses and structures they are permitted on their property, as well as what temporary uses and structures are permitted in different times on their property. I did want to note one of the items that is within this. It does now clearly have home occupations within this standard. Home occupations in your home live in a different section, but this now clearly does not permit any home occupations in the township in an accessory structure. So I just wanted to note that. Another piece that I wanted to note quickly is the way that we define where an accessory structure is permitted. We are requesting changes to with this language. You will see drawings within the packet where now it is very clear that the space, what was once kind of a dead man zone, where if you had an L-shaped house, if you can imagine where that location is, that the gap in between the back of your house and kind of the L, that portion was always considered your side yard, which was not permitted to have a shed or a pool or a hot tub or anything in that location. And over the years, we've had a number of issues where residents really wanted to have more flexibility with where they could put those types of accessory structures, but our code would not allow them to do so under the way it was written at the time. And if they wanted to move forward with that location, they would have to get a variance to our Board of Zoning Appeals. After reviewing what the intention was of that code section and why we either permitted or did not permit certain locations, staff has drafted this language, and the Zoning Commission agreed that these locations are probably permissible for structures, and the locations that you see in these drawings then would reflect with language above, which is hard to read, I know, but if you look at the standards, it reflects the ability for someone to have more flexibility in the locations of where they could have accessory structures in there than just their rear yard. There's also that extra little space. And then on corner lots and double frontage lots, we then define specific areas as well where those accessory structures are permitted. Another piece I just wanted to note is on commercial properties, we have, as the years have gone by, commercial properties are getting more and more accessory structures. So if you imagine, there's containers of almost everything now, whether it's a red box or a propane transfer station or a water bottle transfer station or an Amazon storage locker. There's a lot of different things now that businesses utilize in accessory to their primary use. So we have added sections to these standards to allow for some of those things, but to limit them. So currently, we would not permit any outdoor structures in the front yard. So if you imagine that they're there, it's likely that they are not in, they have not been permitted for that location, and they would be in violation of our current code. What we are looking to do with this is to allow, again, some more flexibility to allow a business to have 3 of these types of uses. So they could have 3 red boxes, they could have 1 red box, an ice machine, a vending machine, whatever that combo is up to them. But 3 is the limit. So they could not have more than that outside. If they wanted to have a propane storage area where they built an indoor facility that allowed for that exchange to occur at their use, that would be one thing, but this really is regulating things that are accessory to or outside of the primary structure. And another item that's a fairly big change for us, the language actually doesn't change at all, but the location of it does. One of the comments we get a lot is where does it say in your code that you're allowed to have a fence? And currently it lives in Article 39, Section 3909, which is an exemption section of the code. It is not the section that most people really think of to see the fence section. So we have moved it into accessory structures. Again, the language itself is substantially the same. It is really just being moved into a section to allow people, when they're looking for all the things they can do on their property that are not their house, another easy way to find it in a location where they would be looking for it. And we'll note the next section that comes up, or one of the next sections that comes up, is a quick modification to Article 39, Section 3909, to remove that since it now lives here. And then finally, currently, the way that we explain what kind of temporary uses or structures are permitted in residential and commercial lots, we do not very clearly indicate what is and is not permitted on certain lots. So we have now created two sections, Section 3807 and Section 3808, both of which now cover all the temporary structures and uses that are permitted on a lot in a residential district or permitted on a lot in a commercial district. In commercial districts, this also includes events. So if somebody wants to have a 3-day event, they can do that. They are permitted up to 14 days to have outdoor events or to have temporary uses occurring. So they can utilize that any way they want, but they can only have a certain number of events a year, which is 4. So they can bundle that 14 days any way that they see fit, as long as they meet those regulations. It also now currently permits people to have something that most communities have done, but we have up to this point not permitted, which is food trucks. So now there are some more flexibility built in as we seem to see more commercial venues looking to have kind of some of those events to bring people in that include some other uses that maybe our code didn't foresee in the past. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them. If not, I will read the Zoning Commission recommendation into the record, and they stated the Zoning Commission recommends approval in a 5-0 vote of the Board of Trustees, or to the Board of Trustees of zoning case 436-19, a text amendment to Article 38 of the Miami Township zoning resolution. And the Montgomery County Planning Commission stated, please be advised that on April 11th, 2019, the Montgomery County Planning Commission approved zoning case 436-19, requesting text amendments for Article 3, Section 38 in Miami Township, and it's signed by Larry Wiseman. I will note, he says Article 3, Section 38. It's actually Article 38, but they did review the same language that is before you this evening. If there are any questions that you have of me, I'd be happy to address them. Thank you very much.
We'll now hear from any proponents.
Good evening. My name is Constance Myers. My address is 3900 Sun Air Court. I was able to meet with Mr. Morris, and I had an issue where I emailed into the city to ask, or I'm sorry, Township, and Chief Hess was good enough to get back with me on that. This is basically, my question is regarding parking due to home occupations. You're part of this new resolution is also the parking portion it's basically the same regulation that you have in the exterior property maintenance resolution. Will that remain in that also?
Kyle, can you speak to that?
So this does not cover any parking. This regulation does not deal with any parking for home occupations or otherwise. The accessory structures that exist are being covered by this section, but parking or a home occupation itself lives in a different section of our code, and parking lives in a different section of our code. It would not change at all with. I guess I'm not certain what parking standard.
On page 6, prohibited accessory uses, Article 1, no commercial vehicle with a gross vehicle weight.
Vehicles. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. If you're talking about where are you at, page 6? Oh, just the general, yeah. So if you will recall, a little over a year ago, One of the standards that we changed in Article 38 was a specific standard that doesn't permit portable storage or cargo containers, railroad cars. Those things, that actually was added in 2018. The other three standards that are within that section, the prohibited accessory uses, are not changing at all under this proposal. It's the same standard we have currently today.
Thank you.
Okay. This, part of the standard that I read was about the weight of the vehicle, the height of the vehicle primarily. And we have a situation in our neighborhood where we have on-site parking at one point, and then if we call to report it, then they move it to on-street, where there are no provisions. From when I spoke with Chief Hess, you have no provisions for on-street parking of commercial vehicles in a residential area. And I would really encourage you to look at that and adopt something, because we're not the only neighborhood in the township that I know that has, we understand you can have a van, you can have a pickup truck, but we're talking about box trucks and utility trucks and those kind of things. And they're really starting to become a problem, especially the rental properties that we have in our neighborhood. So I would really encourage you to adopt something to give the police department a vehicle to be able to enforce it. I know it's not a simple thing to do. I understand it's going to take time, but if we could just maybe start that process, I would appreciate that. And other than that, everything that is proposed is fine. It just needs to go a step further.
In regards to your parking, the parking issue, we're very close. There is a couple technical issues we're working our way through for our parking bureau, and that's really the bite behind the bark.
Right.
As I mentioned to you, cities have a lot more leeway in parking than townships.
Correct.
And they have a lot more bite behind their bark. We're trying to get that, and so there's just a couple small technical issues we're trying to work out, and I hope to have within a month or two everything ready to go where we are ready to move forward with our parking enforcement.
Okay. As a former city employee, we like to sometimes use the term bluffing. So sometimes, you can get people to kind of help themselves and help you too without really having to have something on paper, but it would be a start, and I would appreciate it, as well as I know many people in the whole township would. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing for zoning case number 436-19.
Do you want to confirm that there were any opponents?
She was the opponent.
She was a proponent.
Oh, are there any opponents? Okay, there's a motion already.
I'll second the motion to close the case.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution number 020-2019, a resolution to adopt the text amendment to the Miami Township zoning resolution. Therefore, be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the text amendment to the Miami Township zoning resolution under zoning case number 436-19 and upholds the zoning commission recommendation.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to open public hearing for zoning case number 437-19.
Second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Zoning case number 437-19 is now open. The following be the order in which a hearing proceed. Staff will give a report. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. Please give your name and address for the record, and the board will close the public hearing prior to taking final action. Mr. Hinkle, have the legal requirements for this hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation of the Miami Township Zoning Commission and Montgomery County Planning Commission? And would you please review your report at this time?
Thank you. The case before you is ZC 437-19, a text amendment to Article 6 of the Miami Township zoning resolution. Article 6, as you can see, is our zoning commission regulations. This change really is one paragraph of removing. We're removing one paragraph and adding a sentence to make the next paragraph flow correctly. But generally what is being requested here, the Ohio Revised Code was changed this last year in 2018 that allows for home rule townships, which we are, the ability to not have to ask Montgomery County Planning Commission for a recommendation any further on our zoning text amendments or rezonings. So we are taking that out of our code. Now, there's nothing that would stop us from potentially asking if we felt we wanted to, but this is getting rid of the requirement to do so in our code. So that basically means that we no longer would need to submit to the Planning Commission in a different timeline as we do for other cases where we don't have to submit to them. So that, again, is the request without that paragraph. And the Miami Township Zoning Commission recommended approval in a 5-0 vote and stated the Zoning Commission recommends approval to the Board of Trustees of the zoning case 437-19, a text amendment to Article 6, the Miami Township Zoning Resolution. And the Montgomery County Planning Commission did recommend approval as well. They said, please be advised that on April 11th, 2019, the Montgomery County Planning Commission approved zoning case 437-19 requesting text amendment for Article 6 of the Township Zoning Resolution of Miami Township. So with that said, if there's any questions you have of me, I'd be more than happy to address them. But again, it is a fairly simple change, but it is going to change the way that we do text amendments and rezonings in the township.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll now hear from all proponents. We'll now hear from any opponents. I'll make a motion we close zoning case number 437-19.
I'll second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 021-2019, a resolution to adopt a text amendment to the Miami Township zoning resolution. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the text amendment to the Miami Township zoning resolution under zoning case 437-19 and upholds the zoning commission recommendation.
Second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Last one. Make a motion to open public hearing for zoning case number 438-19.
I will second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
Zoning case number 438-19 is now open. The following be the order in which the hearing will proceed. Staff will give a report. All proponents will speak. All opponents will speak. A time limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each of the speakers. Please give your name and address for the record, and the board will close the public hearing prior to taking final action. Mr. Hinkleman, have the legal requirements for this hearing been met?
They have.
Do you have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission and the Montgomery County Planning Commission? And would you please review your report at this time quickly?
Thank you very much. I do. I do have a recommendation from the Miami Township Zoning Commission as well as the Montgomery County Planning Commission. And the case was, for the record, properly advertised. The case before you is ZC 438-19, a text amendment to Article 39. As I kind of alluded to earlier, not to take away the spoiler of it, but Article 39, Section 3909, is the fences, walls, and hedges section. So we are requesting that we redline, we remove the entire fences section and only add in a small reference that anything that in the future references Article 39, Section 3909 refers back now to Article 38 where the fences live. Generally, we do have some PDs in the township that do have written into their standards that fences will meet Article 39, Section 3909. So that is our attempt, again, to make it very clear that section has moved. With that said, the Miami Township Zoning Commission recommended approval in a 5-0 vote. The Zoning Commission recommends approval to, the Zoning Commission recommends approval to the Board of Trustees of zoning case 438-19, a text amendment to Article 39 of the Miami Township Zoning Resolution. And Montgomery County Planning Commission, I did get a letter that states, please be advised that on April 11th, 2019, the Montgomery County Planning Commission approved zoning case 438-19, requesting a text amendment for Article 3, Section 39 in Miami Township. Signed, Larry Wiseman, Principal Planner. And again, I will note, he says Article 3, Section 39. It's actually Article 39 of our code. But again, he was given the exact same standards that are within your packet. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I was just telling the administrator, we didn't need that letter now.
These actually require 30 days. Text amendments are like rezonings. There's a referendum period, so there's a 30-day wait. So technically we did.
So technically we did, okay.
Sorry.
Just checking to make sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Kyle? We will now hear from any proponents. We will now hear from any opponents. And before I close the case, I do want to thank Chris and Kyle for continuing to update the zoning regulations. I know we kind of frown when we have to do all these public hearings, but it's very useful and it really helps the public to keep things streamlined and up to date. So thank you for your work on that. I'll make a motion, we close public hearing for zoning case number 438-19.
I'll second.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 022-2019, a resolution to adopt a text amendment to the Miami Township zoning resolution. Therefore be it resolved, the Miami Township Board of Trustees approves the text amendment to Miami Township zoning resolution under zoning case 438-19 and upholds the zoning commission recommendation.
Second. Any discussion on the resolution?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
Aye.
We'll now move into elected officials' comments. Mr. Newell.
I have nothing.
Mr. Morris.
I would just like to add for the record a little clarification on what we discussed earlier about this parking of commercial vehicles. I don't want to, I am definitely in favor of tightening up these rules and regulations, but I don't want it to seem as if the township is in a position where we don't want people to be able to work for a living if they drive a commercial vehicle. But this specifically spells out vehicles greater than 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating. Under that would include most step vans, most cargo vans, most trucks, most minivans, all SUVs. So this is not a regulation, if we were to go that route, that is going to eliminate the ability of somebody to work, but it would potentially put strain on somebody who maybe drives a large bucket truck. And those are the calls that we're getting complaints about from neighborhoods, that they got large commercial vehicles being parked in neighborhoods, and I think that is a safety issue that we should address.
Mr. Culp.
None.
I have nothing this evening. I'll now make a motion, we move into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual requests a public hearing in accordance with ORC 121.22G1 at 7:03 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Culp?
And there will be no legislation after the executive session. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:15.